Who's been a significant mentor for you?
There's been a couple over the years. Previous principal of Ridley College, Peter Adam, I've met with over the years. One of my campus workers from Christian Union, I still meet with, Peter Leslie. Others in shorter windows and shorter periods. Some people travel with you longer, some people with you in a more concentrated way. But God provides those people for seasons sometimes, just because there's something you're working through and need some support with. Yeah.
Welcome to the Ridley College Podcast. Here you'll find public lectures, stories from our students and faculty, and insights from leading experts on the Bible, theology, and ministry.
Welcome to this, our new initiative, the Ridley College Podcast. We're trying to give our listeners an insight into what goes on at college, what we're thinking about our own lives and work, some of the events that we've participated in or are about to participate in. My name's Rhys. I've been principal here for 12 months or just over now. I'm really enjoying my new role, though I've been at Ridley for the longest time, teaching and running chapel, but now I have a new set of responsibilities, and lots of those are not just internally teaching and preaching, but representing the college outside, which I've been enjoying as a new challenge as well. I teach church history mainly, some theology, Christian worship as well, and some units that are particularly designed around the Anglican Institute. Beck, you've been with us at Ridley for a while as student, as faculty, and as researcher. Tell us a little bit about your own story here.
So I think my first memory of Ridley was actually when I was probably about 5.
Yes, I think I've heard this story before. Yep.
So when my dad was studying here, I remember being here for something that he and Mum were here for. But then my own Ridley journey itself started in 2018 when I started here doing an MDiv.
Yep.
Took 5 years to complete that. And then, since 2023, I've been part-time on faculty teaching New Testament and
Wonderful.
working on a PhD.
Yes, and your PhD is on?
I'm looking at the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. So not the language Hebrew, but Hebrews in Greek.
Some people haven't found it yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I'm looking specifically at suffering, but also how we understand suffering in light of who God is. So it's really what does it mean for God's people to suffer, and how do we understand that in light of God's goodness and faithfulness? So
I'm so thrilled, one, that Ridley gives some kind of profile to the book of Hebrews, because it's so magnificent for learning biblical theology. How did you, though, come to that particular topic? Like, what drove you personally?
So it actually started my very first lecture as a student at Ridley, which was Old Testament Foundations. We're looking at Genesis 1, and I realised that my view of how God worked in the world needed a little bit more nuance.
I see.
And then the question of how we understand the presence of suffering in God's good world was something that I guess over the years I was thinking about and trying to understand.
Yeah.
I did some exegesis units in the Psalms, looking at lament Psalms and wisdom literature. And, they were really helpful for thinking through this topic. But my Greek is better than my Hebrew. So I really needed to look at a New Testament project, not an Old Testament project. But also really wanting to bring some of those insights from the Old Testament, particularly from wisdom literature, to, how do we understand that in light of Jesus?
Yeah, of course.
The book of Hebrews actually has quite a lot to say. I would argue that it's actually written in the context of suffering Christians who are struggling with why life is hard as a Christian and whether it's worth persevering.
Yeah, right.
And so, that was a really good fit. And there's actually, I think Hebrews research, Hebrew scholarship is not as well filled out as something like Gospels or Pauline literature. So there's a little bit more scope for more research in that area.
It gets a lot of gets lots of the attention, because it's easy enough to talk about the theme of Hebrews being perseverance, but it might be that the theme of perseverance is present because people are suffering, people are asking about God's goodness in the world and what that would mean if they were to follow Jesus.
That's right, yeah.
You teach here which units?
New Testament overview, which is our foundation New Testament subject. So I love teaching that one because I think there's some subjects like church history, languages, where people come because they're told they have to. I think in general, people leave thinking, I'm really glad that I studied that, but I don't have to sell people on New Testament.
Yeah,
they come to that.
It's kind of familiar the material,
yeah.
And you're teaching that unit, if I'm correct, in a suburb of Melbourne at the moment, away from the campus normally?
Yeah, that's right. I think we've tried a few different ways of doing evening classes at Ridley because there's always been a request for that kind of thing, and with varying levels of success. So this is, I guess, the latest attempt to try and meet that need for people. We're running it in Glen Waverley at Glen Waverley Anglican Church.
Yeah,
so I live in the southeast myself, and I know how much of a commute it is into Ridley, and that's not something that's doable for everybody. So this gives a chance for in-person teaching for people out in the suburbs on a Wednesday night.
So we've had a few weeks of it now. It's the beginning of the semester, and it's going okay. People are turning up.
It's a good-sized class, and there's been lots of enthusiasm. So great bunch. Most students, it's their first unit of theological study.
Yeah, sure.
But it's been really great to see the excitement, the enthusiasm.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's important that we continue to, if you will, experiment, try and work out what provision for theology education people are going to buy into, what they're going to find useful. So we're really thankful, and your team teaching that with
Mike Bird.
With Mike Bird this semester as well. Yeah, which is really tremendous. I haven't visited that new campus yet, but I might turn up one night to see you in action.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And for our listeners, having a unit being taught on Wednesday nights in the suburbs at Glen Waverley is a wonderful opportunity for them to perhaps take up a unit at Ridley. But there's opportunity in the chat as well for people to talk about what kind of units they would love to do.
Yeah.
Perhaps even what suburbs they live in, and whether we could do something in a different suburb one time. It would be really wonderful to hear from them.
Yeah. So we're in week 4 while we're recording this. What have been some of the highlights for you, Rhys, of the Ridley year so far?
Some of the highlights for this year so far, I had a couple of weeks off in January, so the last few months have felt very compressed. We've run a few intensives in February. We've often run an intensive training people to read Hebrew, the language.
Yes.
We also ran a unit for those interested in youth ministry called Intergenerational Ministry, helping people to think about the way youth ministry fits into, or children's ministry for that matter as well, fits into the broader demographics that are present in our churches. And we ran a unit for the first time called Women in the New Testament, which was really well subscribed. Those were just for a week, though the language intensive was for a few weeks. So that was a buzz on campus even before the semester began. I'm biased. I love chapel, and to see students gathering each day and the chapel being kind of full and full-throated singing and people trying new things, learning new things, I am thrilled by that. That warms my heart. How about you? Are there things that have happened so far this year that have warmed your heart?
I think Launch Camp was definitely a highlight. It's always great to see current students coming back and getting excited about the new year of study, new students coming along and meeting people and starting to get involved in the community. So that was really good.
Yeah, that's true.
I did leave with a headache because there was so much conversation and laughter happening.
And there's a bit of an echoey room as well.
It was, yes, but it was still a really great day.
And the student committee fed back to me afterwards that one of the things that students have most enjoyed is actually just meeting and hanging out with faculty and playing cards or playing games or just going for walks, having coffee. That in the normal run of Monday to Friday, we've got our places to be in our very tight college schedule, but to relax with faculty I hear, has been really well received. I think it's great. I think it's great that people should see us as part of the fellowship and not just talking heads in the classroom.
Yeah, that's right. It was definitely something I appreciated as a student myself at Ridley, was how approachable the faculty are, and it's great to see that continue.
And for those folk who joined us from interstate, because they're studying at Ridley online, doubly so, because they only get to meet faculty face-to-face perhaps once a year or something.
It's always so encouraging seeing some of the Ridley online students making the effort to come down for launch camp.
It's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary. And some people come back year after year and have found this to be such an encouraging time of people understanding what their online studies are about, or their studies are about generally, and finding it a really supportive environment. Yeah. I want to invite you along to our open day. We have an open day each semester, so that you can come along and sample the kind of day in the life of Ridley. This semester, you can come along on April 22nd. You arrive, welcomed with coffee normally, attend a lecture, come to chapel, morning tea, lunch, have opportunities to ask your questions. And for those of you who don't know what happens in a theological college, this is a wonderful way of putting your toe in the water. We'd love to see you. If you want to find out more details, go to ridley.edu.au/open day, and you can find there the address, the times, and how to register. We'd love to see you. And for those of you who can't be with us on campus, it's a normal workday for you, or you live interstate or overseas, why not join us on the evening of April 22nd for our open day online at 7:30 p.m. and you can learn about Ridley, ask your questions there, and get a bit of a taste for our values, our vision, and what study at Ridley might do for you as well.
So Rhys, one of your jobs as principal is to sort of set a direction for the year, a little bit of a theme for us to focus on. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the theme for this year?
Yeah, I think it's been really great the last few years that we've had a banner that's kind of guided our Ridley Connect, our annual publication, the annual dinner and so on. This year I've chosen the theme from Philippians 1:14, being confident in the Lord. Many of our students are quite anxious. This is the anxious generation, and theological education feels weird for some, or they're surprised that they're here. So I thought it might be good to reflect on that theme, that verse, more intentionally. And our launch camp, of course, had that as a theme. I spoke on it. And amazingly, Paul uses the language confident in the Lord not to try and make people arrogant, but just to recognise that there's so much in his world, in our world, that opposes the gospel, and resilience or perseverance suggests really that we need to grow confident so that we persist in the faith, or in our proclamation, or in our ministries, even when they're hard. Yeah, so that's, I think, started quite well, and the student committee has been quite positive about that as a theme. I have been talking with students and faculty and staff about where we want to go, what are our graduate attributes, what kind of values do we have, and confidence has been one of the things we've been talking about with each other, which has been tremendous.
So how do you see that playing out in a typical Ridley student? What are some ways you'd encourage a student to be confident in
Yeah, well, I want students to try new things and to not be scared of fluffing it or doing something new that they don't get at first, or they don't succeed in at first. So that might be in chapel, or it might be in their church trying something new in evangelism or in leadership of things that they haven't done before. So that might be partly it. Partly just confidence that they can write essays or do assessments and learn from them, even though they might not think they're very good at it, or they're not headed to be academics, which is not our goal. We don't want everyone to be an academic. We want people to be kind of ministers of the gospel. So perhaps a confidence in using technical commentaries or in reading books that are a little bit stretching beyond their normal reading level. We need more men and women who will be leaders amongst God's people. And so to start with small things they can grow in confidence with, perhaps will lead down the track to trying bigger things and leading ministries or being employed full-time in vocational service. So that's part of what I'm thinking behind that, yeah.
I actually say to my students when they're looking to write essays that this is actually an exercise in trying to build their confidence.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great.
Even as they're engaging in discussing what scholars are saying,
yes.
In their essays, I ask them to picture themselves at a conference table with the different voices that they're interacting with at the table, but to see themselves as having a valid seat at the table as well.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so even as you're engaging with what scholars are saying in the books that you're reading, in the commentaries, that you're allowed to have an opinion on that.
That's great.
And you're allowed to present an argument about that. You're even allowed to say you might disagree with somebody.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to be developing your own, thinking your own voice,
yes.
To have confidence. And not just so that you can write an essay and hopefully get a good mark, but that whatever role you're in later, that you have learnt to take a seat at the table, to listen to the other voices, but then to have confidence to
that's great.
Contribute to that discussion yourself.
Great. And for some of our students, it's hard to not just agree with the authority, whether that authority is in front of them in the classroom or in a book or something. But our job, my job, your job at Ridley is not just to get people to parrot our opinions, but to grow in their own thoughtfulness and how they put the pieces together in their minds. And I won't be in front of them, you won't be in front of them all their days. They have to work this out for themselves.
Exactly.
And in lots of situations that we can't really foresee. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And the reality is that as somebody who has done some theological studies, people will look up to them as somebody that should have a voice, should have an opinion.
Correct.
And so I think that growing that confidence in that is really important.
Yeah. Oh, totally. The students don't imagine they're going to be preaching sermons, but very quickly after they've done some study at Ridley, folk somewhere will be asking to preach sermons. A friend of mine was a missionary in Pakistan and didn't assume that his job would involve much preaching. Okay. But the Australian Embassy in Islamabad found out, and all of a sudden he was being asked to do all these things for them at Anzac Day services and kind of processing out loud various things that the staff there were experiencing. And it took him by surprise, but he was kind of the local guy who had some clues.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Bec, you're probably thinking about end-of-year conferences. Is that part of your gig?
Yeah, so I actually went to a few conferences last year, but my PhD supervisors have wisely told me that I'm not allowed to go this year.
To none?
I'm not allowed to go to any
this
year.
I don't think I remembered that.
So I'm hoping to get my PhD finished this year.
Yes,
and so all my writing time has to go to that rather than papers.
Yes,
but hopefully next year I'll be going. How about you? Are you planning to go to?
Yeah, so I've got a few things planned. I'm leading a tour to the sites of the Reformation in Germany and Switzerland in June. I've done this every few years since 2007. It's been a while since because COVID kind of got in the way, but that's in June for both students and friends of the college, students who are doing it for credit, friends of the college who are there to learn stuff generally. So that's June. I'm looking forward to it. There won't be as many crowds in the sites we visited as last time, which was the 500th anniversary of the Reformation in 2017. And I am hoping to attend a conference that often our colleagues attend at the end of the year in November, the Evangelical Theological Society conference. Oh, you go to others as well because you're a Bible person. But
yeah, that's right.
I'm not presenting papers on New Testament or Old Testament. Yeah, my question this year is quite a sharp question, actually. My research is largely about Jonathan Edwards. I'm asking the slightly controversial question, did he contribute to white Christian nationalism somehow 300 years ago? It's a little bit tricky to navigate a topic as ticklish as that. And you see in his ministry some things that you might say, yes, he was a distant contributor, but you also see in his ministry some things which would have worked against that program, that theme. So I'm trying to sort out how he fits in contemporary issues, because you don't want to go overboard and say that anyone from the past is entirely responsible for today. That just doesn't work historically. There are so many contingencies, there are so many factors taken into account. But I just want to be honest about Edwards and how his theological ministry reflection is part of a bigger evangelical story. So we'll see if they accept my paper for for reading in November. I'm quite enjoying the reading so far. Yeah.
So is this a live conversation, or are you kind of picking up things that other people aren't noticing?
Yes, so I'm reading a few books on the rise of Trump and the place that so-called evangelicals played in the rise of Trump, and those books might have an historical section, but if they do, they don't have much on Edwards. So I'm just trying to work out, is that because they've looked and they've seen nothing that he contributed, or they just haven't looked?
Yeah.
Right, what does that mean quite? So there's probably a bit of a niche to ask the questions. My research is on the evangelical story of the last 300 years, really, all around the world, Australia, the US and Britain mainly. So this is tracking a big story and trying to work out where it fits in it. Yeah, which I'm fascinated by.
Sounds interesting, yeah.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah. And what else are you working on this year? Do you have any other projects?
Thank you, yes. So I'm writing a book at a popular level on mentoring that Matthias has agreed to publish, which is really wonderful. I've been talking about writing this book for the last 200 years, so I'm finally getting to it. Learning how to write in a more popular style, and finalising a book on Jonathan Edwards and the Kingdom of God, which I've written in the last couple of years, and just the final edits to go. So that's pretty satisfying. I'm still trying to work out how I fit in research to my role.
Yeah.
The role is big, but this year I'm feeling it's more containable than last year, which is probably no surprise. But
yeah, you're finding your feet a little bit.
Finding my feet a little bit and learning to say no to some stuff, and managing on the second time through some things, doing them a bit quicker than when I did things for the first time. Yeah.
So I know you've published a book, Edwards the Mentor. So does Edwards make it into this Matthias book on mentoring?
Yes, he does. In fact, there's a chapter on people through history who've either written about or practiced mentoring, and Edwards gets a bit of a showing there, not surprisingly, but I've discovered some other people I didn't know, whose names you don't often know. Mentoring often happens in secret, or not in secret, but like without much visibility, because it's just one-on-one.
Yeah.
I've discovered a woman named Henrietta Mears who was a significant influence on Billy Graham, which I've just been fascinated by, and the way Billy Graham speaks of her influence in his own life and ministry, which is just beautiful. There are others who are perhaps a little bit more famous, like John Newton, who mentored William Wilberforce and so on.
Yeah.
So I do give some cameos to people other than Edwards. But
Very good. That should be a good contribution. It's such an important part of a lot of people's stories, is having someone to walk with them.
Yeah, I agree. And when in our world institutions often feel on the nose, a real live human being in front of you who cares for you, who talks with you, who prays for you, who listens to you, can make the institutions seem livable or less threatening. So I think there are great advantages for ministry formation, for mentoring. Have you had some mentors?
Yes, I've had formal and informal mentoring. Yeah. So there's a lady I meet with once a month just to catch up, and it's just great that she knows everything that's happening in my life.
Yeah.
And so, when there's something that I'm trying to think through, she already knows the backstory.
Yes,
and,
I see,
I know
yes.
that she's praying for me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, that's pure gold. That's pure gold for not just for your ministry, but for your personal walk with the Lord, your own spiritual health, your own emotional health, right? Those are just wonderful gifts.
Yeah. As well as, people here at college, at church who, are just that little step ahead of me on the journey that, when I just need to find out how things work or, talk through something, it's been really
correct. Yeah. Yes, it's not that a mentor has to be perfect or a long way ahead, but even a few steps ahead, there's wisdom in that to encourage others with, to train others with. Yeah.
Who's been a significant mentor for you?
There's been a couple over the years. Previous principal of Ridley College, Peter Adam, I've met with over the years. One of my campus workers from Christian Union, I still meet with, Peter Leslie. Others in shorter windows and shorter periods. Some people travel with you longer, some people with you in a more concentrated way. But God provides those people for seasons sometimes, just because there's something you're working through and need some support with. Yeah. Yes, I'm very thankful to the Lord for people He's brought into my path. And I pray every day that God would bring into my life people who'd nurture me and care for me and support me. And actually, I also pray that God would keep out of my life people who'd damage me or distract me or harm me as a Christian.
Yeah.
And He's abundantly answered my prayer.
Yeah. Well, it's been great to chat with you, Rhys. Looking forward to future conversations in the podcast.
This has been fun, actually. I was a little bit nervous at first, but this has been fun.
Yeah. We'd like to have the chance for listeners to ask us some questions that will be answered in future episodes.
Yeah, great.
So if any of the listeners would like to ask a question and have a faculty member answer it, you can either put your question in the chat for this podcast or look at the show notes and there will be details there of how questions can be submitted.
Yes. So you and I might, in a future podcast, be answering questions, or there might be other faculty, our colleagues, who answer questions. But it's a wonderful way for people to engage a little bit more personally with a day in the life or a week in the life or a semester in the life of Ridley College. So thanks for joining us. This is our first in this series of podcasts. It's been wonderful to have you listeners coming along. You can find out more about Ridley on our website, but also you can subscribe to this podcast. You can find it wherever you find your other podcasts.
Thank you for listening to the Ridley College Podcast, brought to you by Ridley College. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and liking our podcast. Also, be sure to check out our Ridley Chapel Sermons podcast through the link in our podcast description. This podcast is made possible through the generous donations of our alumni and supporters. We welcome your partnership with us in our mission of equipping men and women for God's mission in our rapidly changing and increasingly complex world. If you'd like to contribute to our work, you can donate via the link in the description below.